Hello everyone and welcome to Hersley. I'm John McNamara and I'm here today with Mike Jewson. Hello buddy, how are you?
Hi John, so I'm Mike Jewson. I'm a product manager for IBM Integration Bus. Worked on the product now for quite a few years, so a bit of background there.
Awesome buddy. So today's topic is going to be about the soon to be GA'd IBM Integration Bus version 10. If this is a live hangout, if you want to tweet any questions, please do. Please tweet them to hashtag IBM Integration. So before we get down to the product specifics, Mike, is it worth giving us a quick overview on what integration actually is?
I think so. A good level set is a great way to start here. So what is integration? Well, imagine you're working in an enterprise there without an integration product. So you have a number of applications. Those applications need to communicate with each other to actually work together. And so each communication link between those applications needs to translate between different protocols, different message formats, and it means every application needs to communicate with every other application. And so the number of connections you actually require is actually the square of the number of applications that you have. So you've got these bespoke connections, really complex to code, difficult to maintain, difficult to evolve. Every time you add another application, you get an even bigger problem to solve then.
Right,
now, with integration in place, you get a whole different ballgame. An integration product like Integration Bus, it understands a whole variety of different protocols. So the protocol's taken care of you. For message formats, you define the message once to Integration Bus, and then it understands it. And once you understand it, doing the translation between those different applications is real easy, and then you can add the value add. And of course, it's a graphical, development tool as well. So you don't have to go down into deep levels of code. It's all very visual, and so from a maintainability point of view, very easy. And from an evolution point of view, every time you add an application, it's just a linear scale there rather than logarithmic scale.
I understand. Fair enough. So a fair few points to consider. In that case, then, what makes IBM Integration Bus a good integration product? Okay,
so Integration Bus has been around in a number of disguises. It first came out in year 2000, would you believe it? And it was called MQSI in those days, MQ Series Integrate, a long time ago. So, in all that time, we've had a great deal of opportunity to create a very general purpose any-to-any integration engine that has also a lot of built-in standard support as well for all those industry-specific standards and things like that. We've been around a long time, and we've put a lot of technology into this product. And you just have to look at the Gartner reports, and the Gartner report says, hey, we're market leaders. We're out there in the top right quadrant.
Yep.
So it's taken a long time, but we've been there for a long time as well.
Cool. So is IOB based on proprietary technology?
No, and you'll find other integration technologies will be, particularly biased towards a particular proprietary technology. Integration Bus is very definitely not a proprietary technology at all. We pride ourselves in being able to connect anything to anything. So, no specific IBM orientation in terms of what we do. Yes, we will integrate with IBM products, but we'll integrate with a whole lot more. So as well as all these standard protocols and some certain standard message formats, we also can connect with a whole lot of other vendors, solutions like SAP, Siebel, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, first-class support for .NET, and so things like Microsoft CRM, for instance, that's fine. We can integrate with that. We've got ODBC and JDBC database support for a whole wide variety of databases from different vendors as well. And as well as that, we have concentrated on a few industries as well. Retail, healthcare, and manufacturing, where there's specific things that those particular industries want to do, and we focus on industry packs for them to actually accelerate the development of integrations in those particular industries. And the manufacturing pack is equally applicable to energies and utilities. Same sort of technologies used across those three sorts of industries.
Sweet. All right, so let's say I've got IBM Integration Bus. How quickly can I be expected to get value from that?
Okay, so this is now coming into sort of what we've been doing for version 10. we've put a lot of focus in version 10 on what it's like to be a first-time user.
Yep.
And so right up front, we've done a lot of sort of user experience work and design on what it is for a first-time user, what's the experience, and how we can improve that. And so we've taken what we found on board and we've improved things a great deal. So typically now you can install an entire developer setup for Integration Bus in about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that includes, both the development toolkit and the runtime, and a runtime server will be created for you there as well. So after you got that downloaded and installed on your device there, then typically we like to be able to get something up and running within about 40 minutes. So, when the toolkit fires up there, you get presented, do you want to start a sample? And you say, yeah, let's try a sample tutorial now. And you follow through very simple, three steps for each one of those, and get something up and running in that, development server, which you've got on your system, and you can get value out of it very, very quickly. You can understand what's going on very, very quickly. And if I could add one or two other things as well, is one of the huge value adds we've got in Integration Bus is the ability, is the range of built-in patterns we have available.
Okay.
So these patterns cover a whole variety of use cases, really massive. And so, when you're developing a new application or a service on Integration Bus, the chances are you don't need to start from that blank screen and say, I've got to start from scratch. You just look up the particular pattern you may be interested in, which is, got some attributes associated with what you're trying to create. You pull that pattern in and you start from the pattern. You start from something which is there and working, and you customize it to your own need. So up and running, real quick, value to, time to value, very, very quick as well.
That's fantastic. It's phenomenal. You've got reuse built in, where you can take patterns that we're using in industries and use them for yourself. You're not starting from scratch. Well,
there's further to that as well, of course, is that as well as the built-in patterns, we have the ability for a client to actually define their own patterns. So what we see, is clients often have a range of services they want to put on their Integration Bus, but all those are very, very similar to each other. So they're all stamped out the same template, for instance. And so what clients can do is, for that template, they create a pattern of their own, and then they stamp out all the different services which are based on that pattern. That accelerates the development of all those services, and of course it makes it really easy to maintain, because they're maintaining one pattern instead of perhaps 100 different services.
Right, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So that sounds fairly sophisticated and level of functionality. So what's it like actually developing a product like Integration Bus? Yeah. Well, we live in exciting times, and I think the most exciting things we're doing with Integration Bus is all about user experience, and about yes, of course, just like any product, we've got a prioritized list of things we want to put in that product, but we don't just go ahead and say, let's just go code that and get it running. We actually sort of sit back and we think, okay, well, what is the user trying to achieve here? And we go through a whole variety of trials, using often lots of bits of paper and yellow stickers, things like that. Right. And we work it through again and again and again until we get that user experience just perfect. And only then do we actually put the code in place to actually support that user experience. So that's really close to our hearts, is user experience. We want to make it so obvious to use this product that anybody can use it. It really is all about enabling this product, potentially for just business analysts as well as programmers. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. So in terms of the software prereqs for IBM Integration Bus, what can you tell us about that?
Okay, so we've done a lot of work in version 10 with the one remaining prereq. For those listeners listening who are familiar with Integration Bus, you'll know that the prereq for version 9 and before was MQ, WebSphere MQ. Yeah. And there was a limit in how we could use WebSphere MQ, and also it always had to be there. Now, by loosening that prereq in version 10, we've made our usage of MQ a lot more flexible. So let me go through some of the things. There are going to be some use cases where you won't need MQ at all. Okay, so it'll be a relatively limited set, but there will be some use cases where you can install Integration Bus without MQ present. It will work, it will support your use case. But there's going to be a whole pile of the usual, use cases where you will require MQ present. Right. And so, a lot of our clients, they want the two-phase commit, things like that. So that's really important, and MQ provides that for us. But Whereas before, you had to have MQ very local, so the queue manager had to be defined on the local system. That constrained, system administrators exactly how they could deploy MQ associated with the integration bus. Now it can be local to the system, and it can be remote to the system, so you can install MQ on a remote server. Now, in addition to that, we always used to have a one-to-one relationship between integration bus and MQ.
Yeah.
That again has been loosened. So now many integration buses can communicate with one single queue manager, whether locally or remote, or maybe even no queue managers at all, as I've spoken about earlier. So great deal of flexibility. Now, what does that mean in practice? Well, in practice, when you're talking about high availability, and let's face it, in this business, you want to have a high availability solution. Yep. It means you've got more choice. You've got more flexibility of how you deploy that high availability solution using integration bus and MQ, where you put the two resources and just how you want the failover to happen, things like that, whether it wants to be active idle or whether you want to be active.
It sounds like you've got a fair bit of flexibility in there, so you can use MQ to plug in for a short delivery, failover, publish and subscribe, that kind of thing. But if you don't need that, you aren't tied to it necessarily.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And in fact, publish subscribe, you bring up a really good point there, because as probably many people viewing today will realize, we use the publish subscribe engine in MQ to handle our publish subscribe. So with MQ not present, what are we going to use for publish subscribe? And in fact, what we've got now is we support MQTT.
Okay.
And so seamlessly, with MQ not present, we'll simply use MQTT for publish subscribe. So that's one use case which will continue to work without MQ present.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. So how might I be able to go about extending IIB?
Yeah, well, there's always going to be, edge cases where, certain devices and certain, protocols need to be supported for whatever reason. And we see, sometimes there's odd and strange, regulations within certain countries, which, need to be handcrafted in the actual local country. And so the way to extend that has been improved in version 10. Now, up to version 10, we had the concept of user-defined nodes. User-defined nodes were kind of, I have to say, integration bus centric, if you like. Right. You had to know quite a bit about integration bus in order to get a user-defined node working to connect to some back-end system. So we wanted to improve that no end, because we saw a need for clients to be able to do this. So we've created what's called a connector framework. Okay. And the connector framework, the integration bus side of it is really obvious. The user experience of that is straightforward, very obvious. You only need to focus on the back-end system that you actually want to connect to. You don't have to focus on the integration bus side of things. So it's wonderfully quick and efficient to develop using the connector framework. And what's more, in rewriting the MQ nodes and adding the MQTT nodes, we've made use of that connector framework so that we actually are using that technology. And a further thing about this, and this is something that you'll see more and more, is we've put that connector framework source code on GitHub.
Ah, fantastic.
Now, you'll see a lot more artifacts appearing on GitHub, which previously would have been bound within within the actual product. Yeah. Now, the advantages of putting it on GitHub is that we can open source parts of the product which are appropriate to be open sourced. That's great for our clients. And also, it gives us a mechanism for delivering self-contained items for the product in an completely asynchronously to the major releases. And so we can actually deliver things to customers really quickly using GitHub. Now, it's probably worth me just kind of going over a few things that we potentially have in GitHub. So as well as the connector framework, we also have a whole pile of standard message formats. So you can just pick up and use those without having to develop them yourselves for industry standard sort of message sort of types there as well. We've got the Web3 ESB conversion tools. So where you want to move your source artifacts from Web3 ESB over to Integration Bus, those conversion tools are there. And again, they're open sourced as well. We've got an AMQT connector on there as well, based on the connector framework technology. We have our analytics engine connected on there as well. Again, open sourced, so that people can say, actually, I like the analytic engine connector, but I want to connect a different engine to it. It can be done because the source code is actually available there. Now, I mentioned patterns and samples, and guess what? That's a perfect spot for patterns and samples to be put on.
Sure is.
So, you know, we've put the patterns and samples on GitHub as well, and we have chef scripts there as well. So that way you want to do some sort of virtual machine deployment, the chef scripts are available on GitHub. So, you know, it's giving the customers a lot more, you know, buy into the product, because they actually get hold of these components from a source code level, and they can adapt them to their own purpose. Really.
That's fantastic. That's a lovely methodology. It's a very developer-centric methodology as well.
Indeed, yes, yes.
It's great to fork off the kind of libraries, play around with it, and contribute. That's a marvelous methodology. Thank you. Okay, so a big question: IBM Integration Bus in the cloud.
Okay.
Will we soon have that functionality?
Yes. So yeah, you know, existing you know users of Integration Bus will know that up to now we've had our hypervisor editions, which, you know, were somewhat limited in what they could do. They were a stack containing the operating system, MQ, and Integration Bus all together, and so that could be deployed as a whole onto essentially, you know, more or less bare hardware there. So since version 9, we've added the chef scripts, which give a lot more flexibility.
Grand.
Okay. We've added a rental pricing model, and the rental pricing model can be used to rent Integration Bus. We also have a bring your own software license, and for the rental and bring your own software license models, we've got, you know, clouds available that Integration Bus can run on. For instance, the Amazon cloud. For instance, Microsoft Azure cloud, and of course IBM Software Cloud as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Can't get that.
Now we're really keen on cloud. There's a lot more we're going to be doing on cloud, and we've made a statement of direction in our recent announce for version 10. And that statement of a direction is really focused on making Integration Bus on the cloud look and feel and be usable in exactly the same way as Integration Bus on your local premise.
Fantastic.
And now, if we can solve that, and that's the work for the development team in 2015 from that statement of direction, then what it means is that we could have the capability of cloud bursting out from local premises, you know, into the cloud where extra capacity was needed temporarily, and then shrink back down later. And you know, a typical use case of that, as you're probably aware, is when you have, what is it, Black Friday, right? When you have the big shopping time, where, you know, any retailers and banks will need that extra capacity for a short period of time when so many transactions are being executed, and then they can shrink back down again. So yeah, watch this space in terms of what we're doing there. Have a read of the statement of direction in detail in the announcement for version 10. There's going to be a lot of great stuff coming out of the lab.
That sounds phenomenal, buddy. Thank you. All right, so shall we look and see what questions await us on Twitter?
Yeah, okay. All right, so I've got one here about support for mobile applications. So that's a really good question, because we have done quite a bit of work in that area in version 10. So that's been one of the major work areas. Now, for version 9, we did introduce mobile patterns, and of course we'll continue to have those mobile patterns, and we'll continue to evolve those mobile patterns. So that's where you can import this pattern and get something working quite quickly. Now, in addition to that, you know, mobile applications really need to have, you know, a RESTful API interface.
Yeah.
And so we need to make it, we said to ourselves, we need to make it really easy to develop a RESTful API interface so that people can deploy mobile applications real quick. So what we've done there is create a new first-class construct within Integration Bus. So up to now, we've had sort of concepts of applications and services and associated libraries, and now we've added you know, a RESTful API as a first-class construct. Now, the underlying definitions are all held in a Swagger definition format. Okay. Really popular industry format for defining RESTful API interfaces. And for those listening who don't know what Swagger is, I can describe it very easily. Every single operation on a mobile application interface will have perhaps an operation title, if you like. They'll have an HTTP operation associated with it, and they'll have something which is like a path name associated with the object you're actually trying to do something with. Okay. Now, this first-class API is very easy to develop because you're just giving those 3 kind of values, if you like, for each of the APIs you want to generate. So really easy to do. It's like writing a line of code for each one of those. It's simpler than that, really. So you write your line of code for each of the APIs you want in your interface. Then you press a button. Integration Bus will develop the entire outer message flow for you, just straight off like that. And so you have essentially, the whole outer application all done for you. The only thing the developer would need to do then is fill in a subflow.
Okay.
A subflow for each one of those operations. Now, for a typical mobile application, that subflow might just be some sort of database access. What? So imagine, you're adding something to a database or reading information out of the database. And so the subflows might only actually be one node, which might be just a database access node.
Right.
And so you can imagine how quickly you can develop a mobile application using that. Now, every mobile application requires a client, of course. And of course, you've got to write these JavaScript clients for the mobile, for the client end of things. And of course, as part of this generation of the application, we also generate snippets of JavaScript.
Okay. So
that can be put into a Node.js style of environment. And so you can just take these snippets of JavaScript and you can build up your client end, what the application actually looks like from these snippets of JavaScript. You've got the client end done, you've got the server end done, and you're away. And it's really easy. So, it's a really good question that was about mobile. I think, it's tremendously improved in version 10.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think I spied another one as well on that.
Yeah, so analytics, yes. So yes, we have been doing something in analytics. But let's just step back one step first before I talk about what we've done, because when you have an integration product in your enterprise, that gives you a huge advantage, because it means all your data, all your messages are flowing through a single spot. When all your data is flowing through a single spot, that's the perfect spot to apply analytics. Whether you're taking data there to generate an analytical model or whether you're acting upon that data. So, it's a perfect fit to have an integration bus, and then you add analytics. So for version 10, we've added a new analytics node. So analytics the technology is moving very quickly.
Right.
We've kind of focused the node on using the R analytics engine.
Okay.
But we've open sourced it. It's on GitHub. And the idea is you should be able to integrate SPSS, SAS, and all sorts of other analytical engines into it. Okay. Because the technology is developing at such a pace, it was very important that we didn't constrain people to one particular type of engine at this point in time. I think, as time moves forwards, we'll probably find that the certain analytical engines will become more popular than others. Okay. So we've tried not to constrain it. We've tried to use the most popular one at the moment, which is the R engine, and that node can do some analytical type of operations. There's 2 particular use cases it can be used for, and that's detailed in the announce there. So yeah, analytics, that is where we're moving to, and you'll see a lot more work on analytics done as we move forward on that, and as the analytics technology and the technological trends develop over time.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so very much indeed, but it's been an absolute joy to talk to you. Folks, hope that was useful. Again, tweet us at any questions or comments on hashtag IBM Integration. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Cheerio. Okay. Bye now, everybody. Take care.